To Syria now, where the UN is pulling out its staff amid growing concern about the violent crackdown by government forces against demonstrators. It comes as activists say over 30 people have been killed since troops seized control of the northern port city of Latakia. For analysis of the crisis in the uprising-torn country, I'm now joined live by Michel Chossudovsky, Director of the Centre for Research on Globalization. Many thanks for joining us here on RT this evening. Now, the UN is making its move out of Syria. Is it a sign, do you think, the situation is just getting out of control there?
Absolutely not. The United Nations is moving non-essential staff out, but I think that this is really part of a public relations campaign to demonize the Syrian government without addressing the fundamental causes of the crisis. This is not a peaceful protest movement. It is an armed insurrection by gunmen, well-organized mercenaries, and it is confirmed not only by government sources. Let's examine Israeli and Lebanese sources say the protesters have heavy machine guns. So, I think that the United Nations decided to remove its non-essential staff essentially as a prelude to tomorrow's session at the United Nations Security Council.
But it's believed that the 5-month-long uprising has seen over 1,800 people killed, and the violence there is escalating. So surely this is the right time for international action.
Well, first of all, those figures on those death figures are not confirmed by anything which is tangible. They come from foreign sources. But I think what we have to address, first of all, are the causes and consequences of those deaths. I've been following this day by day since it started in mid-March in Dara, in the southern city of Dara, which has a population for 45,000 people. And what we have is Islamist gunmen, Salafi, as well as Muslim Brotherhood gunmen, snipers shooting at civilians as well as shooting at police. And Israeli sources actually confirm that these militia, and I quote, are armed with heavy machine guns. They say they won't say that this is not a protest movement, because that seems to be the media consensus, but then they say the protesters are armed with heavy machine guns and anti-tank traps. Now, since when are peaceful civilian protesters armed with heavy machine guns?
So who are these people working side by side with the protesters then? Who are these armed terrorist groups that you're talking about?
These are death squads which are supported directly by Turkey and Israel, and it's an intelligence operation. They come in, they cross the border, they go into communities. I have looked at the reports from church groups. They go into the Christian communities. They intimidate people, they shoot on them, they kill them. So that the question we have to ask ourselves, who is the source of this killing? What are the underlying causes of this insurrection? And then we also have to address.
What is your proof of these allegations that Ankara is somehow behind this?
First of all, I spent a couple of months in Syria earlier this year. I left the country shortly before this started, but I have been following the press reports. And I'm not relying on government sources. I'm relying on Lebanese, Israeli, and Western sources. And if you read between the lines, they acknowledge the existence of an armed insurrection, and they also acknowledge the fact that the police have been shot on, etc. Right from the beginning. You have to read the press reports very carefully. We're dealing with a big lie as far as media information is concerned. The media don't even have access to Syria, so they're drumming up a whole series of interpretations which are, from my standpoint, totally biased.
Okay, Michel Chossudovsky.
We also have information that
Okay, these are rather big allegations coming out here, Mr. Chossudovsky, but an interesting perspective there on what's going on in Syria. So many thanks for your thoughts, Director of the Centre for Research on Globalization. Thanks for speaking to us from Montreal.
Thank you.